My friends, January's coming to an end. We didn't have any big Pokemon releases in January, but don't worry, there will be many, many more this year. We had the Magic release, of course, a traditional Magic set, so no Universes Beyond. Hasbro Wizards offered us Lord of an Eclipsed. And I can only speak about this expansion in superlatives so far. The flavor, the cards, the atmosphere, the tournament turnout, the gameplay, it all works for us. All that's left is to applaud and be glad that such Magic sets are still being released and happening. Let's hope this is a great sign for the entire year. But I think the more interesting thing, and probably the one that was mentioned and commented on more often, with more memes being made, is of course the release of One Piece OP14, Azure of the Seven Seas. What was so interesting about this release? Well, first of all, it was an absolute repeat of last year's situation, but with a new card game. Because almost exactly a year ago, we had, well, the big craze with Prismatic. All the stores and chains, well, all the places that actually, those who sold the product at or near the suggested retail price were swarmed by resellers, which significantly reduced the available product supply and caused massive frustration for players, collectors, and fans. This led to ongoing disappointment and made it much harder for genuine enthusiasts to obtain the product at a fair price, and everyone else who wanted to get the product for themselves. One Piece, after the incredible run we saw at the end of the year and are still largely seeing, well, as expected, also had a relatively hot release. We saw all kinds of photos from hypermarkets, convenience stores, and hobby shops where there were actually long lines forming at the Parta. Check out to buy the product. Let's hope, well, we can't know for sure, but let's hope that for the most part people were opening them and playing with them, but we also realize, because we're not naive, that a lot of that stock also went to scalpers. Who are they? When do more of them appear? What is it related to? And are the methods of fighting this practice effective? Scalpers, of course, are by no means a new phenomenon. In the world of trading cards, they have appeared from time to time with various different expansions. Actually, I don't know. Many people don't remember anymore, but expansions like Hidden Fates, well, those were also expansions that were quite heavily, you could say, scalped, bought out from stores. Celebrations for the 25th anniversary. A very similar case. And of course, the moment a Pokemon expansion like that comes out, which Ascendant Heroes probably will be in January, then of course the stores will be raided by barbarians once again, and all the merchandise will very quickly end up on Facebook groups, Marketplace, eBay, and so on. But where does this even come from? Where do these people come from? And how long do they stay? When do they actually leave the hobby? Actually, the mechanism behind this, well, it's obviously simple and as old as time, and it's very much related to the price. Both in the case of various collectibles, such as limited edition trading cards and rare action figures, and in the case of sneakers, including exclusive releases and highly sought-after models, which were also being scalped by resellers aiming to profit from high demand, the problem became more noticeable. Card games like Pokemon, Magic, it all comes down to the fact that a product that is highly desired on the market is available on the market for a very limited time at, let's say, that suggested price. The suggested retail price for card games usually gives sellers about a 30% window to earn their commission. And if that actual price revolves around that suggested price, by actual, I mean, well, the price you can actually buy the product for, but not physically, only online. So TCG Player, eBay, or Facebook Marketplace. If that suggested price and the actual price fall into actual similar ranges, then we actually have a happy medium, because players, collectors, investors, everyone has access to the product. Stores order the amount of product that they feel they can actually move. Some online players appear who cut their margins a bit, offering these products at slightly lower prices. While locally in those game stores, where obviously the costs are different, communities are built among players and collectors, well, in those stores, the margin might be a bit higher. But everything revolves around those general areas that allow stores, distributors, wholesalers, and manufacturers to make a profit, while people have access to good merchandise at the right price. Of course, problems start when the real price, meaning the price we can buy products for online, starts to drift far away from the wholesale or suggested price, ignoring it completely, because situations like these cause many entities and people to appear on the market who will actually want to profit from this growing price gap, simply taking it for themselves. And the pattern here is very simple, because to engage in such an activity, it doesn't require anything more complicated and specific knowledge. All it takes is knowing that, let's say, an elite trainer box of Prismatic Evolution costs, I don't know, wholesale is probably $40. Suggested price is around $60. When the market price is around $100, $110, then basically anyone who finds out that such a price markup exists, well, then basically that whole gap between 60 and 110 is just room for someone like that to move in and flip the product fairly smoothly. Because we know that the people filling these market gaps and scalping these products, whether it's sneakers, I don't know, cards, or some collectible coins, well, basically, those people who focus strictly on reselling, they don't want to hold on to the stock for too long. They just want to flip it pretty quickly and pocket the difference. Many people in the community rightly see the huge negative impact scalpers have on how the whole hobby and everyone involved in it can access the product, suggesting various ways to fight back against them. Some of them are more effective, some less so. Among the solutions I've heard that actually work quite well to solve this problem are mainly tearing off the shrink wrap at purchase, limiting units per customer, or prioritizing sales for people with some kind of membership, or in the case of game stores, LGSs, then players and collectors who are part of that community. On the other hand, methods like sabotaging sellers on Facebook groups or eBay are less effective. The reality is that a cheaper product will always sell, except, of course, in cases where the seller is dishonest, but for many people, it's just a type of business. And we see it with those stores that used to be sneaker shops with all kinds of cool kicks, shifting very smoothly into stores selling graphics cards or Pokemon cards. These are stores that basically just churn through product and target that price gap we were talking about. And just as we saw it last year with Pokemon, we're seeing it now with One Piece. The difference is simply just too big. When on a single box, the gap between the actual price and the suggested retail price starts to exceed several dozen dollars. It's just too much easy money for people not to go after it. And it seems that, at least for now, this problem is unstoppable because the nature of printing, distributing, and delivering TCG games also means that the manufacturer or distributor usually doesn't have it very easy when it comes to adding more product to the market that could mitigate this problem. These processes of generating reprints and distribution take many months, and they're often planned so far in advance that actual market conditions often surprise the decision makers. The people making decisions in these places many months beforehand. As we see with Pokemon, about a year after Prismatic, this practice generally doesn't disappear so much as it loses intensity as the price gap narrows. When Prismatic had several dozen dollars to address, stores were packed with people who wanted to get to the register at all costs, toss a few of those ETBs into their cart, list them on eBay later, and pocket a nice sum. Then Journey Together and Destiny Rivals also left some meat on the bone for those people, but it was often so little that fewer and fewer people were willing to wait around, track restocks, stand out stores, and look for places to get them. It's very closely tied, in fact, to the amount of money that can be made from it. I think that ME03, or Perfect Order, will actually show what we already saw to some extent with Phantasmal, which is the fact that rising suggested prices, the prices stores sell at, and falling actual prices narrow the gap to the point where the product finally stays on the shelves, and those who resell it flee to another game or a completely different hobby. Right now, we have a pretty strong influx of them into One Piece, and I suspect the story will be very similar to Pokemon. As much as we'd like to see stories of people who bought garages full of merchandise they have no clue about and can't liquidate later, let's be honest, liquidating Pokemon or One Piece in the current economy isn't exactly rocket science. For a liquidation problem to occur, there would have to be some kind of a sharp price reaction, a price crash. And besides that, really, especially this year, it seems like for these two card games, we're still a long way off. So, for those who are still frustrated, when faced with the lack of product availability, I generally offer the same thoughtful advice that I received from a friend when my son was born. Namely, if things are bad, let's not worry too much about it, because in most cases, it tends to change quite rapidly. But if things are good, like we have right now, for example, in the Pokemon or Magic market, let's enjoy it, because that joy can also be fleeting, and we don't know if the situation will change in a few months. Let's look for opportunities, be patient, look at the data, don't make hasty decisions, and opportunities will present themselves. And product availability is always resolved by the manufacturer sooner or later.